All right, we are live. Good morning, everybody. It is another gorgeous morning here in the Highlands Botanical Garden. We are going to wait for a few seconds to see if anybody joins us and then go out on one of our garden tours. I'll give you a view of where I'm sitting right now. It's one of our two waterfalls here in the Botanical Garden, and it is incredibly relaxing to sit here and listen to. It's been a beautiful day here. We've had a couple of cold nights in the last few weeks, in fact in the last week, and have quite a bit of wind right now, so I hope y'all can hear me well. Welcome! Just enjoying the sound of the waterfall before we get going. Alright, so we are here at the Highlands Biological Station in Highlands, North Carolina. My name is Paige Engelbrechtson. I am the Nature Center Education Specialist for the Biological Foundation. We have so much going on right now that I'm happy that you can join us to see what is blooming in our garden, what's changed in the last week. Today we're going to be heading over to the easternmost portion, really, of the Botanical Garden called Mary's Garden. It also happens to have potentially the least amount of cell service, so keep your fingers crossed that this lasts. If I happen to glitch out, I will do my best to jump back to you guys, or if worst case scenario, I'll film the rest of what I plan to show you guys so you have a chance to see what things look like today. So I'm going to highlight just a few of the species that we're going to see along our way and hopefully give you the chance to really enjoy how beautiful our botanical garden is today. If you have any questions or comments, please shout out in the chat and I will do my best to answer them. I have a whole backpack full of flower field guides just in case we spot something that I'm not familiar with. But our very first highlight today is a plant that is very recognizable. Anybody know what this is? This is Jack in the Pulpit, which gets its characteristic name from this covering, this pulpit, where Jack is said to sit. The three leaves are actually one leaf that's divided, and sometimes it can be confused with trillium or poison ivy, but this tall stalk and the T shape they make. Oh, there's a little spider. Hi, friend. Probably hoping to eat some of the pollinators that come in to pollinate the flower, which are drawn in actually by the carrion smell of the flowers. And what you see here is not the flower itself. The flowers are actually down here at the base of this stem. And they're very small. In fact, I don't think those dark splotches you might see at the base, and I apologize for coming in and out of view, those are the flowers. They're tiny. They can actually be male or female. So we can call this Jack in the Pulpit, but we could equally call this Jill in the Pulpit. And the way that they work is that the flies that perhaps that small spider over here was looking to catch are drawn in by the smell. They'll come down, they'll work their way down, and in male flowers, they'll get covered in pollen. And then there will be a small hole, an escape route at the very base of the pulpit where they can come out. Female flowers have no such hole. They want those gnats and flies to get stuck down here and worry their way around and really shower the female flowers in pollen, which seems to work sometimes to the flower's detriment, rather the fly's detriment. They can actually get so worked up and not find their way out that they pass away inside the flower. So as in many species, the female can be the deadlier of the two. And female flowers and male flowers can actually occur on the same plant in different years. Whether a plant produces female flowers or male and female flowers or male flowers alone is determined by how many resources they have. So female flowers come from a plant that's got plenty of energy to spend because it's a very labor-intensive process to create the seeds. If a plant has limited resources, they might produce only male flowers because all they have to do is produce pollen and they're done. And if a plant is young or has no resources, they might just decide, not this year. I'm gonna put up leaves, I'm gonna store up energy, and we'll have another crack at this next year. So they're pretty fascinating plants, and they are all over the garden in different colors and different sizes and different heights. You'll see more as we go. All right, welcome to everybody who's joined us. We are heading towards Mary's garden along the Falls Trail and seeing what we see. If you have any questions about what we're seeing or any comments, please jump in. Oh, yes. Oh, it's so good to hear from you guys. I have very fond memories of going on those spring wildflower hikes at Holmes Educational State Forest. So I know that feeling of missing folks, and it's why I'm glad to be able to live stream with you guys. Try to show you all a little bit of the glory of the garden. This is perhaps our most rugged trail. And I hope you guys have all had a chance to get back here before. We have plenty of visitors here. You can see somebody brought their dog along earlier today. I actually bumped into him. We also have our hooved visitors, our deer, that like to come back here and munch away. We might see some of the plants that they've nibbled on. Might not have the open views of our other trails, but there's something very peaceful about this one. All right, so the next flower that I want to highlight is this little guy, and you're probably familiar with the group that he belongs to. This is a sweet white violet, one of the many species that are found on the East Coast. They're actually in a really dense bed right here. And violets have an interesting pollination strategy. Kind of like Jacks and Jills in the pulpit, they depend on pollinators. When you see these open flowers, they are metaphorically open for business. They're hoping to be cross-pollinated with other violets here in the bed. But just in case, oh my gosh, hi Azariah! Thank you guys for joining us. I bet you guys see this flower everywhere, in many different colors, many different species. And the flowers that you may not see are actually one of the cooler ones. So just in case a flower doesn't get pollinated by pollinators, they'll form closed flowers that will be down here in the greenery, and they will never open, but they'll still produce seeds. So if the flowers that are open and cross-pollinated produce seeds, and the flowers that are closed and never pollinated by pollinators produce seeds, what we're seeing there is the violet is self-pollinating to guarantee that they're going to have seeds to produce, that some seeds will be produced regardless of whether it's a cold year for pollinators or inclement weather. And those seeds can actually be dispersed in a couple of really interesting ways. These guys are fairly short-stemmed violets. You might not think that because they seem to be fairly far off the ground, but we're going to see another violet a little farther into the garden that will put this one to shame. Yes, Heather, it's a very successful tactic. Maybe not necessarily great for genetic diversity, but you're going to make some seeds. And those seeds are going to be dispersed by ants. These flowers are close enough to the ground that when the seeds are ripe, the ants will be able to get access to them. And that's a good thing because they attach this really juicy packet of nutrients to the seed. It's called an elaiosome, and the ants love that. So the ants will come and take the seed with the elaiosome. They'll carry it off somewhere, hopefully farther away from the parent plant. And then they'll drop the seed and eat the elaiosome, which gives the violets that have short stems a really good chance of being dispersed farther away from the parents and maybe colonizing new areas. Those taller stem violets that we're going to see, they have a slightly different dispersal mechanism. So we'll see them when we get to them. I've got some dark-eyed juncos, actually, that's why I've paused. They're hopping around in the underbrush. You won't be able to see them, they're very good at blending in. They have these white bellies and slate gray chests and heads and backs and wings. And they're actually one of the easiest birds to spot around here because they do make such a ruckus, hopping around on the ground. But I want to stop for a moment and just point out this guy. Recognize him? This is another Jack in the Pulpit. And the first one that we saw had no opening down here, so we knew it had female flowers. Good morning! Can you guys see this really fine opening right there? It's just large enough for the gnats to get out, which tells me that inside of here are male flowers because this plant is designed to allow those pollinators to escape with the pollen. So earlier in our live stream, we saw a female flower. Now we've seen a male flower. And when I was actually opening these up and looking down them earlier this morning, I was seeing a lot of those pollinators taking shelter. Fortunately, I think I've disturbed most of them, and they're fairly hard to see on this camera. But we're going to get to the actual portions of Mary's garden now, and let's see what we can find out there. Thank you guys again for joining us. There goes my junco friend. So this is Mary's garden. It's a lovely open spot designed for our native pollinators. And it's named in honor of a woman named Mary Enlow, who was a local. She lived down in Franklin. And when the botanical garden was just being formed in the 1960s, she donated the native plants after her passing so that they could get established here and contribute to what would later become the entire botanical garden. Replant some Jack in the Pulpits? That is an interesting question. I am not sure. I can look that up for you and get back to you. I'm good at telling the plants apart. I'm less knowledgeable about how well they survive. But speaking of telling them apart, you might just see an absolute wall of green here, and I don't blame you. There are certainly some things, though, that stand out to my eye. This plant with these beautiful separated leaves, this is cutleaf coneflower, and it will produce flower stalks taller than I am. And for those of you who may know me in person, I'm almost 6 feet tall. And so the height of the leaves right now is about up to my hip. The flowers will grow even taller than that. And there's a lot of it through this bed. But another plant that we have here, these beautiful leaves are hiding a flower. This is the May apple, which is finely flowered. They were one of the first leaves up in the spring, and now they're flowering. Many of our native plants are actually found through the Piedmont as well. We have a few that are native only to the mountainous region, so there's certainly some that would not do well outside of our specific conditions, but a number of the species we have up here can be found down in lower elevations as well. And I would hazard a guess that this one is one that you may have in your own garden. Let's take a look at this. Does this look familiar to anybody? Here's its leaf. This is wild geraniums, and the slightly spotted nature of these leaves gives them their species names, maculatum. And they have a really interesting seed mechanism. Oh, good for Azariah! It was one of those plants that when I first saw it, I knew it looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So congrats to him for knowing that. Perhaps you know how its seeds are dispersed from your own geraniums in your garden. These guys are really cool. After the seeds are produced, they'll be in this pod that's fairly wet, for a lack of a better term. And then as that pod dries, it'll hit a point where it will actually pop. It'll become so dry that the pod springs open and the seeds are launched great distances. It's called ballistic dispersal, which is a great term for anything botany related. But do you guys want to guess how far those seeds can be dispersed? Because this shocked me when I learned it. Although plants are so cool, I guess I really shouldn't be shocked. These seeds can go more than 30 feet, which is 5 times my body length. And to think of a teeny tiny little seed getting launched quite that far is just astounding. But what's perhaps even cooler is what happens after that. Because these seeds have a tail that's attached. And I apologize, I'm getting washed out by the sun at the moment, so I'm gonna move to somewhere a little shadier. But these geranium seeds have a tail. And when it's dry, that tail is curled. And when it's wet, that tail straightens. So the seed is launched into the air, hopefully falls on some open ground. 15 times that. 30 feet away from the original parent plant, sails through the air, it lands, and if it's wet, that tail will straighten and dig into the ground a little bit. Then it dries out, so this tail curls, pulling the seed closer into the ground. And then maybe it rains, so the ground is soft again. The tail straightens, digs a little further into the ground. Then it dries. Tail curls, pulling the seed deeper into the ground. And it's a great way to essentially anchor the seed in a new place, hopefully one that's viable for growing in, so it doesn't get washed away or eaten. Plants are amazing, and I'm also hearing, sorry, pardon my, I'm hearing, who are you? Come closer. Oh, okay, this is really cool. We have a warbler over here. I'm gonna switch, I don't think you guys can see. But right over there in the shadows is a little warbler who is letting me know I'm getting in his business. And he has a little black hood and a cheery bright face and chest. I believe it's a hooded warbler. And he's the one going beep, beep. And I believe his mate is also over there. She's in the shadows as well. There are definitely 2 of them that are letting me know they know I'm here. I also saw black and white warblers when I was out here this morning, and sparrows. So we're gonna shift away from the birds, and we're gonna go to perhaps one of the best kept secrets of the botanical garden. You guys know where I'm headed now? Give you a hint. We're gonna follow that stream. Hearing a few more bird species as I come back here. Don't know. Cardinal. And up there, bopping around on those little branches, got another bird who's letting me know what for. Now, you guys come back here, you're gonna hear a whole bunch. Yes. There are some birds that have no problem letting you know that you're too close, sir, or madam. Please step back. All right. So this spot is the second of our little waterfalls here on campus. And it is one of my favorites to come and just sit and relax. I'm gonna come off-road so you guys can get a better sense of what it's like back here. Yes, speaking of woodpeckers, our pileated woodpeckers this morning were also chiming into the chorus. that I was hearing. Hopefully they aren't jumping on the side of your house. But welcome, thank you guys for joining us. We are just splashing around in one of the little waterfalls we have here on campus, and we're gonna take a closer look at these guys. So this is another violet species, and you can see in comparison to the sweet white violets, which had a stem about yay tall, these guys are much taller, and they have a very different dispersal mechanism from these sweet white violets, which can depend on ants when they're low to the ground. That really fun term from the wild geraniums, that ballistic dispersal, that applies here too. Now, the wild geraniums that we saw earlier were much taller, up here compared to our little violets. So the wild geraniums could fly 30 feet in the air by seed. How far do you guys think these shorter but still fairly tall violets can go? Bonus points if you try and work it out in page lengths. We have some more over here. And our classic young Jack in the Pulpit leaves too. I don't see any of the maroon variety, but I'll point them out if I do. Ladybig, so 6 feet. A little bit farther. These guys can get launched about 2.5 page lengths, about 15 feet away. Hey Joe, thanks for joining us. I hope you guys are having some fun enjoying seeing the garden, maybe learning a little bit. I always like to toss some educational material in there, can't help it. Also just because plants are super cool. Yeah, half again, 15 feet, which here could launch the seeds into the stream, which is probably not the place where the seeds want to go. But also there's a lot of moist stream side habitat, which these much taller violets seem to enjoy. That's where I'm finding them. So we are going to leave our little waterfall. We're going to head back to Mary's garden. And if you have any questions, things that you've seen that I haven't talked about, something that's you've been wondering about, let me know. I have 2 more species that I want to highlight and walk through. Got somebody up there who's talking to me. I don't see them. You may notice what look like dead pines. Ooh, hello friend. Okay, that is, I'm not gonna be able to zoom in. A white-breasted nuthatch just flopped by, and he is crawling up this, I can't ID that from the bark. But he is hopping up the bark, looking underneath it for insects. He has a little black stripe down his head, right here, and then a white face and a white chest. They're always hopping on the side of trees, which is one good way to identify them. Whoop, you guys do have maroon jacks? Yeah, that's fascinating. I think the color differentiation is genetic. I was seeing some suggestions that perhaps the maroon color was an additional lure along with the carrion smell for the pollinators, but so many of our flowers are green at the moment, that covering, and I don't know. We do in fact have Virginia bluebells. They are back up in our Woodland Way portion close to the Nature Center, and they have been, just filling the Woodland Way to extremes. So you're welcome to come and see them. Botanical Garden is open, especially under our new phase 1, and we would love to have you guys. It's just the Nature Center that isn't open at the moment. Here we have, as you guys might be able to see, this is Solomon's plume with kind of ziggy leaf structure. And over here, we have some badly predated Solomon's plume. I mentioned we might see some things that the deer visitors had nibbled on, and here we have it. They took a chomping to quite a bit of it. They love to eat off the ends of it. So, a slightly similar, really cool plant is this yellow fairy bells. I don't see it in any other places, perhaps just because I'm not in the right areas. So I wanted to point that out for you guys. Yeah, the deer love to nibble on a lot of the taller, stemmier stuff, which I find interesting. But the last plant that we're going to touch on today, they definitely won't be eating the flowers of. I'll give you a hint. This is heartleaf, also known as little brown jug. And you guys know where the flowers are? Oh, that's somebody else talking to me. They are way down here. These are the little brown jugs for which it gets its name. And the flowers are deep inside of there. Similar to the jack in the pulpit, they are pollinated by little flying insects. Some of them are general flies. Some of them are what are called thrips, which look like little flies. And yes, Serena, they are down here well out of the way. And those flies might be attracted by the smell. They might just think, hey, this is a good place to hide from the rain, or hey, this might be a good place to find a lady. So it's kind of a multi-purpose flower, benefiting both the plant that gets pollinated as they move from one to the other, and benefiting the pollinators who are able to take shelter in this area. And it is certainly the most inconspicuous flower of those that we've seen today. You know, most people walk by and never know that down near the ground, that's where the action is. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me today. I am going to walk back out to the other waterfall, just to give you guys that view of what our trails are looking like right now. I've covered the content that I had planned to. I hope that it was engaging, exciting. Maybe you learned a little bit of something. Maybe you already knew it, in which case, mad kudos to you. I hope that you guys have a great day. If you want to, tune in next week. We'll be having our next live stream on Monday at 11:30. We're going to cover a different portion of the botanical garden, try and really highlight the changes that are going on. And who knows, maybe in a few weeks, we'll be back here in Mary's garden and it'll look completely different, especially once that coneflower gets going. So if you have any comments or questions, please drop them in the chat. Thank you, Serena. I hope that you guys, if you're in the area, relatively nearby, you're welcome to come up. We are not doing any kind of public programming for the foreseeable future. Would that I could, and when we do, those may take the place of virtual live streams. But for the moment, this is the best way for me to talk to you guys, and I miss you too. If you guys check our Nature Center page, you'll find a bunch of activities that you can do at home, both for kids and for adults. I certainly enjoy doing them. And you'll find more resources for past live streams, upcoming live streams. And if you guys have any ideas, let me know and we'll see if we can make it happen. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's great to get a chance to talk with you all and connect in our socially distanced and appropriate way. So we're gonna head back out, and thank you guys so much for joining me. Feel free to stick around if you want to see the last stretch of trail and maybe more birds. I had some brown thrashers who were scolding me for coming too close to them earlier today on my way out. One of these days I'll actually be able to identify birds by call, and then I can tell you all the many other species that are not coming down to let me know what they're doing. Take care. Just saw some of my dark-eyed junco friends. All right, folks, we are at the end of our live stream. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that you get a chance to connect with nature wherever you are, and that I see you on a future stream. Take care.